I never imagined that a simple side gig selling handcrafted leather journals would turn into the battleground of my life. But there I was, seated on the scuffed hardwood floor of my cramped studio apartment in Brighton, phone pressed to my ear, voice trembling, as my brother's laughter rang in my ears. "Leather journals?" he scoffed. "Really, Isla? People buy that? You're wasting your time." I clutched the receiver, heart pounding. His words felt like punches, each one landing harder than the last. My brother, Owen, always played the role of the successful sibling, the polished city banker with a corner office and a tailored suit. Meanwhile, I was this struggling artist following my passion for craftsmanship. But passion didn't pay rent, did it? I pressed my free hand against my chest, where my heart thundered like a drum. "You don't get it," I managed. "I have orders to fulfill, clients writing to me from all over Europe. I've built something real." He cut me off. "Real? You're toying around with glue and scraps of leather while I'm closing seven-figure deals. Face it, Isla, you'll never make a living at this. Why don't you get a proper job?" Silence stretched between us. The overhead light flickered once, then died, plunging my apartment into dusk shadows. I ended the call without another word. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the tiny leather journal on my lap, the prototype I'd just finished, its edges hand-stitched, with waxed linen thread. I traced the grooves of my handiwork with my fingertip, and remembered the first time I'd fallen in love with leather. The heady smell, the way it softened under my hands, the promise that I could transform something plain into an object of beauty and meaning. That was the moment I decided to pursue design, to turn my back on a conventional path. My parents had warned me. "Art is fine," they'd said, "but you need a backup plan." But I had no backup plan. I had Clara, my best friend and confidant, who believed in me more than I believed in myself. It was Clara who taught me how to navigate online marketplaces, how to photograph my products, how to respond to customer inquiries with warmth and professionalism. Through late-night brainstorming sessions over cups of herbal tea, we hatched the idea: handcraft bespoke leather journals, each one unique, each one a personal story. The first few months had been rough. I made mistakes, missed deadlines, miscalculated shipping costs, lost payments to PayPal disputes, but I learned. I adapted. Orders trickled in, first from local stationery enthusiasts, then from writers in Edinburgh, then a call from a boutique shop in Berlin that wanted to stock my journals for their holiday season. By spring, Clara and I converted my tiny living room into a makeshift workshop, and I hired a part-time assistant to help with packaging. So when Owen mocked my work, it stung deeper than I cared to admit. I climbed to my feet and paced the room, frustration coiling in my stomach. I needed to prove him wrong. But how? I was just an artisan with two hands and a head full of dreams. Then, inspiration struck. Owen's bank branch was holding a high-profile charity gala. A crowd of wealthy clients, local influencers, and the kind of people who appreciated quality and exclusivity. What if I could get my journals into their hands? If I could secure just one prominent order, Owen's laughter would turn to silence. The next morning, I donned my best outfit, simple yet elegant, a charcoal gray blazer over a silk blouse, paired with dark jeans. I loaded my portfolio into my satchel, samples of my journals, a crisp brochure, and a handwritten note addressed to the gala coordinator. At the bank's headquarters, I was greeted by security guards who eyed me suspiciously, but Clara's pep talk echoed in my mind. Confidence was everything. I strode forward, head held high, and handed my note to the receptionist. A polite request for a few minutes with Ms. Davenport, the event's organizer. Minutes later, I found myself in an oak-paneled office, seated across from a woman in her early 40s, Ms. Davenport. She had salt and pepper hair pulled into a neat bun and wore pearls that spoke of old money. "I'm sorry, Miss Flannery," she began, consulting my brochure. "We typically source gifts through our approved vendor list." "Understood," I replied, voice steady despite the adrenaline in my veins. "But I believe this will be different. These journals are handcrafted. No two are alike. Each one can be customized with the client's initials, a meaningful quote, or even a family crest. They're more than just notebooks. They're heirlooms in the making. Her eyes softened. Customization does add value. I seized the moment. I'd love to offer you a sample set, at no cost. Let your guests experience the quality firsthand. If they love them, I'd be honored to supply the entire guest gift package for the gala. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. I'll review your samples. But Ms. Flannery, if these don't impress, you won't have any further opportunities here. I wouldn't expect anything less. I stood, extending my hand. Thank you for the chance. Walking out of the bank, I felt my pulse slow. I'd taken the first step. Now I had to pour every ounce of skill and passion into those samples. Back in my apartment, I set to work. I selected the finest vegetable tanned leather in deep mahogany, its surface smooth and luminous. I measured and cut each cover carefully, ensuring that the edges were perfectly aligned. I personalized one with Ms. Davenport's initials, ED, pressed into the leather in gold foil. For another, I inscribed an inspiring quote from Maya Angelou. We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. Hours blurred as I stitched, pressed, and polished. The scent of leather and beeswax filled the air. Clara dropped by late that night, her eyes widening as I presented the finished set. Isla, these are stunning, she whispered. I smiled, exhaustion ricocheting with pride. Tomorrow morning, they're on their way. A week passed in a tense blur. I tracked the shipment obsessively, refreshing the courier's website until it practically burned into my retina. Finally, on the day of the gala, I received the text, packages delivered, samples accepted by event coordinator. My breath caught in my throat. Now all that remained was the verdict. That evening I sat in my apartment, dressed in the same blazer that had carried me into the bank, heart hammering with anticipation. My phone buzzed, a message from Ms. Davenport. Your journals were the talk of the gala. Several guests asked how to order. I'd like to discuss a supply contract. Can you meet next week? Tears sprang to my eyes. I sank into my desk chair, laughing and crying all at once. Despite the fear and doubt, I'd done it. I'd turned my passion into profit and earned respect at my brother's bank. But this was only the beginning. Owen's laughter would echo no more, but what came next would shake both our worlds to their foundations. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. Quote, the sun was just rising when I stepped off the train and into the crisp morning air of Brighton's historic quarter. My heart felt lodged in my throat, an unwelcome souvenir of the anxiety I'd carried all night. Clara had insisted I stay at her flat to calm down, but sleep had eluded me. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant gull cry, reminded me of the stake I had in today's meeting. I clutched my tan leather satchel, feeling for the reassuring weight of my portfolio inside. The morning light slanted through stained glass windows of the station, painting fragments of color on the tiled floor. I let the moment sink in, the calm before the storm. Owen's words rattled around in my mind. He'd texted me hours ago, a single line, good luck, show them what you've got. The ellipsis felt like a taunt. I inhaled deeply, picturing the last time I'd faced him after a failure. The amused tilt of his head, the condescending lift of his eyebrow. That memory fueled a righteous fire inside me. The meeting was at a small cafe overlooking the marina, an off-site location Ms. Davenport had chosen to avoid bank formalities. I found her at a corner table, already seated, her posture as elegant as the day we'd first met. She looked up as I approached and offered a reserved smile. Isla, thank you for meeting me here. Her voice was warm, but I detected the professional distance in her tone. Thank you for having me, Ms. Davenport. I slid into the chair and placed my portfolio on the table. She took a slow sip of her cappuccino and studied me over the rim. Your journals caused quite the stir at the gala. I've spoken with our marketing director. He's intrigued by the personalization aspect. But we need to ensure we can manage the volume. We have about 300 guests, and we'd like each one to receive a journal ahead of the event as a VIP gift. Is that feasible for you? I paused, based on the contract details I'd prepared. Yes, I've already adjusted my production schedule and hired 2 additional artisans. The journals for your event can be crafted to your specifications, size, cover color, embossing style, and delivered a week before the gala. I opened my portfolio to reveal detailed mock-ups, swatches of leather, embossing templates, a production timeline with key milestones. She leaned forward. These mock-ups are lovely. But for 300 units, we need assurance of consistency. We can't have half the journals arriving late or misprinted. Quote. I nodded, tapping a section of the timeline. That's why I've partnered with Brighton Bindery, a local workshop with industrial-grade presses and quality controls. All journals will be assembled here in my studio, then undergo final inspection at the bindery before shipping. I've also arranged for a contingency run in case any defects emerge, an extra 10% production buffer. Her eyes softened, a flicker of approval. You've clearly thought this through. Now, pricing. Our budget is £45 per journal. That includes personalization, packaging, and delivery. I felt the familiar tension building in my chest, but kept my expression steady. My standard rate is £60 per unit, but for this volume, and given our ongoing partnership potential, I can offer £50 per unit. That includes gift box packaging with satin ribbon and a handwritten card for each guest. She raised an eyebrow. £50 is still above our budget. Clarity struck me. I reached into my satchel and pulled out a slim notebook. Inside, I'd drafted a proposal, a 2-tiered approach. What if we tier the personalization? For your top 50 VIPs, we include full customization, foil embossing, handwritten card, premium gift box. For the remaining 250, we use a simpler deboss with initials only and standard gift boxes. That brings the overall average cost to £45 per unit. Her lips curved in a small, impressed smile. Strategic and thoughtful, she tapped the coffee cup. Let's run with that. Relief crashed through me, followed immediately by the hum of adrenaline. I stood and offered my hand. Thank you, Ms. Davenport. I won't let you down. As I left the cafe, my mind raced with next steps, confirming leather orders, coordinating with Brighton Bindery, drafting the contract. But beneath the thrill of victory, a deeper realization settled in. This partnership was a foot in the door, not the finish line. Back in my studio, Clara greeted me with a tired but excited grin. I saw your text. Congratulations. I flopped onto a stool, rubbing my temples. It's real. I'm actually doing this. She handed me a steaming mug of tea. No, we're doing this. You couldn't have managed 300 journals alone. I smiled, the warmth of friendship and shared ambition washing over me. Clara, I couldn't have asked for a better partner. We stayed late, mapping out production schedules on my whiteboard, assigning task lists, and contacting leather suppliers. Each decision was a stepping stone toward our joint future. Then, around midnight, my phone buzzed. A group chat notification from Owen and our family. My heart thumped. I tapped the alert and read the message. Family dinner at the old house tomorrow night. Be there. My throat tightened. The old house, our childhood home, was where I'd gone to escape criticism, but also where I felt like an outsider. Family dinners meant small-town gossip, comparisons, and relentless reminders that I hadn't followed the proper path. I closed my laptop with a decisive snap. Clara, remind me, did I ever tell you what happened at the last family dinner? She tilted her head, eyes curious. Only that your dad tried to set you up with a banker friend of Owen's. I laughed, a bitter edge to it. That's the polite version. Tomorrow, he'll see I'm more than a girl making journals. Clara reached over and squeezed my hand. And if Owen tries to mock you again, you'll have the proof to shove back in his face. My jaw set. Tomorrow, I'll walk in there not as his little sister, but as his equal, and maybe a little more. The next sunset would bring more than family pleasantries. It would bring the reckoning. I sank against the cool, wallpapered wall of the hallway, phone pressed to my ear like a lifeline. Clara hovered beside me, her brow furrowed as she fought the urge to pace. Ms. Davenport's words echoed with cold urgency. We've lost nearly 300 journals, she said. The bindery's lower level was flooded after the burst pipe, and most inventory is waterlogged beyond salvage. We need those journals in time for the gala. What can you do? My mind raced. 300 journals, the core of our first major contract, were gone. The contract was signed. Email threads spelled out the delivery date, production milestones, and penalty clauses. A missed shipment would be a breach that could cost me my fledgling reputation and Clara her faith in our venture. We'll save it, I said, voice steadier than I felt. Send me the detailed damage report. I need specifics. How many units are fully ruined, and how many are partially salvageable? Mr. Patel from Bindery says roughly 60 journals are undamaged. Another 40 can be dried and repaired. The rest are a total loss. Clara's grip on my jacket tightened. Isla, that's barely a third of the order. I nodded, my fingers tingling where they held the phone. Understood. I'll call you back shortly. I hung up and exhaled, the panic inside me roaring like a storm. Clara's voice was soft but firm. We need a plan. I ran a hand through my hair. Options. We either find a backup facility that can produce the remaining 200 journals pronto, or we salvage whatever we can and negotiate a partial shipment with Brighton Bank. Clara frowned. Negotiations won't cut it. They expect full delivery. My chest tightened. Yes, so we need a new production source. Sheffield and Oxford studios are tied up with our standard production schedule and won't finish in time. But there's a leather workshop in Dover Handcrafts. They have a capacity of 300 units a week. If we can secure their services, we might hit the timeline. She took a breath. I can call them now, but shipping from Dover to Brighton takes 2 days by road. And leather supply, would they have the same mahogany hides? A flicker of hope ignited. Leather suppliers. We ordered an extra batch last month and stored it in the Hove studio. I'll load up the truck with those hides, and you handle the leather transport to Dover. Meanwhile, I contact Dover Handcrafts owner, Marisol Vega, and charter the operation. If she's willing, we'll subcontract. Clara nodded. On it. She darted to her phone. I sprinted upstairs to the Hove studio, adrenaline fueling my steps. The whitewashed walls were lined with shelves of leather hides, Saffiano, full grain, vegetable tanned, each awaiting transformation. I grabbed the mahogany hides, the precise shade that Ms. Davenport had approved. We couldn't risk last-minute aesthetic inconsistencies. At the loading bay, I charmed the rental truck attendant into handing over the keys early. The truck roared to life, and I backtracked through Brighton's narrow lanes, hauling the hides back to Clara's flat, where she was on conference call with Marisol. I burst inside. Leather delivered. Status? Clara's face lit with relief. Marisol's on board, but she needs to see samples and confirm embossing specs. She can start production tomorrow morning. I swiped through my phone. Ms. Davenport's embossing templates, our digital training manual, including the binder setup, stitch specs, quality check protocols. If Dover could replicate our process, we could salvage the shipment. I glanced at the clock. Midnight. There was no time to lose. I opened my laptop and drafted a concise but persuasive email to Marisol, attaching the specs and specking out a meeting for the first light. I worked through the night, laying out timelines, quality benchmarks, and incentive structures, bonuses for early delivery, penalties for defects. By 3 a.m., Dover Handcrafts had replied they'd review the specs at dawn. They needed, like any artisan, the confidence that our operation was worth the risk. Clara collapsed onto the sofa, exhaustion etched on her face. I joined her, adrenaline receding into bone-deep fatigue. If this works, we'll have 3 days of production, plus 1 day of shipping. She rubbed her eyes. If it fails, her voice trailed off. I took her hand. It won't. The sun had barely breached the horizon when my phone buzzed. Meeting confirmed. Dover Handcrafts, 10 a.m. sharp. Bring prototypes. I loaded the truck with the prototypes. Custom marvels from Hove, each one as perfect as Clara and I could make. Then I navigated the rented truck on the A27 and onward to Dover. The drive was a blur of headlights and motorway signs. Anxiety surged with every mile. At Dover Handcrafts, I stepped into a cavernous workshop filled with the rich scent of leather and varnish. Rows of machines stood silent at this early hour. Marisol Vega emerged from an office. her dark hair in a braided crown, arms crossed as she assessed me. "Isla Flannery?" she asked, voice firm. I extended a hand, offering a slight bow. "Ms. Vega, thank you for seeing me." She motioned me inside. I laid out the prototypes on a large oak table. The artisans gathered, eyes widening at the craftsmanship. Marisol studied the journals. "Your standards are high." I nodded. "I know you can match them, if you follow our specs exactly." She raised an eyebrow. "Why risk your reputation with an outside studio?" Honesty wove through my response. "Because my contract demands it, and because I'm not willing to let unexpected events, like a flood, destroy everything I've built." Her expression softened. "Show me your digital training manual." I tapped my phone, projecting the PDF onto a screen. Pages flipped through production diagrams, embossing templates, bind settings, inspection checklists. The Dover team leaned in. "So you want us to produce 200 journals in 4 days, with full embossing capabilities, custom binding, and quality assurance," Marisol summarized. "And you need delivery by next Wednesday." I nodded. "Exactly." She tapped her chin. "We'll need to adjust our morning shift to a 12-hour schedule and run a second night shift. It's doable, but our lead craftsman will need extra help." I swallowed, recalling our budget. "I'm offering a 30% premium above your standard rate, plus a bonus for early completion." Her lips twitched. "Money talks." I exhaled, relief surging. "Thank you. We'll finalize details in writing." As I shook Marisol's hand, I felt the weight lift, only slightly. The true test would be tomorrow, when production began, and I'd either watch the journals roll off the line or face another disaster. I returned to Brighton in a daze, Clara waiting anxiously. Together we updated Ms. Davenport, who responded with cautious optimism and recalibrated our shipping logistics. But that night, as I lay alone, exhaustion giving way to adrenaline, my phone buzzed again. A single text from Owen. "Nice save. Let's see if Dover can keep pace." "Dinner this weekend?" My blood ran cold. His tone was polite, but I sensed something beneath, an unspoken challenge. I stared at the ceiling. The next 48 hours would determine everything. If Dover Handcrafts delivered, I'd secure my contract, prove my resilience, and finally earn Owen's respect. But if they failed, darkness pressed in, and I realized that artistic passion was one thing, but business warfare was another. And I was now on the front lines. Dawn's pale light seeped through the studio windows, illuminating droplets of dew clinging to the leather hides spread across the work table. I stared at the sleek prototypes from Dover Handcrafts, each one a testament to resilience and collaboration. The bindery flood had been a nightmare, but Marisol's team had worked through the night, guided by our specs and the promise of premium compensation. Now, as I ran my fingers over the smooth grain, I allowed myself a moment to breathe. Clara arrived moments later, clutching a stack of shipment invoices and an anxious smile. "They finished early," she announced, tapping her phone where live tracking numbers scrolled. "The truck departs Dover in 10 minutes, headed straight to Brighton." Relief and adrenaline intertwined, pulsing in my veins. "We did it," I whispered. She laughed, but the sound wavered with exhaustion. "Barely, but yes. Now we wait." The hours crawled by as we monitored the truck's progress. Dover, Chichester, Worthing, Portsmouth, and finally Brighton docks. Each checkpoint pinged like a heartbeat, reminding me of everything at stake. Ms. Davenport had warned me, a single-day delay would trigger a 5% penalty per diem. I clenched my jaw. No delays. At 4 p.m., the tracking updated. Delivery complete. The journals had arrived at Brighton Bank's loading dock. Clara and I arrived within the hour, hearts thundering like war drums as we unloaded the crates. Inside each crate lay 40 journals, perfectly nestled in foam, their leather covers gleaming under the warehouse lights. A bank logistics manager approached, clipboard in hand. He eyed the journals, then my trembling hands. "Everything looks intact. We'll inspect immediately." Clara exchanged a look with me. Words felt unnecessary. We unloaded the final crate, then stepped back, breaths held. An hour later, we reconvened in Ms. Davenport's office. She sat behind her polished desk, her expression inscrutable. She tapped her pen. "Are these the journals?" I nodded, summoning every ounce of composure. Clara stood beside me, shoulders squared. Ms. Davenport held up a journal, flipping through its pages. The light caught the gold foil on the cover. BGLVIP. She ran her thumb over the embossing, then glanced at her assistant. "The quality is exceptional. I see no damage, no irregularities." I exhaled so forcefully my entire body trembled. "Thank you." She leaned back. "The gala commences tomorrow evening. We'll distribute the journals during registration. If any issues arise, contact me directly." Her words were a lifeline. We had met the deadline, delivered flawless products under impossible circumstances. Outside her office, Clara and I embraced, tears of triumph sliding down our cheeks. "We did it," she repeated, voice thick. I nodded, eyes shining. "We did." But even as we celebrated, a new thought took root. Success had been tested, but the fight was far from over. Owen's challenge, and the world's expectations, would not relent. That evening I received another text from Owen. "Well done. Maybe leather journals are tougher than I thought. Dinner Sunday?" My phone buzzed again, a notification from Brighton Bank's social media team, tagging our brand in a photo of gala guests flipping through their journals. Comments praised the craftsmanship. I stood on my balcony, Brighton's skyline stretching before me. The sea breeze carried the promise of new horizons and fresh challenges. And then, as the sun dipped below the water, I felt a shiver of anticipation. Tomorrow, I'd return to the dining room, contract in hand, to claim my victory. But tonight, I'd savor this moment. The sweetness of a dream realized, the resilience born of adversity. Midway through, a reminder. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. The next morning arrived with an electric buzz. I woke before Clara, drawn to my laptop by an email subject that made my heart skip. Urgent. Media inquiry from the Financial Times. I opened the message with trembling fingers. A journalist had attended the gala and was writing a feature on unique corporate gifts. He wanted an interview. Opportunity knocked, but with it came the specter of scrutiny. I drafted a concise reply, suggesting an in-person interview at my Hove studio, and emphasizing our journey from crisis to triumph. Clara found me pacing. "FT?" she asked, eyes wide. I nodded. "They want a story. If we can get published, it'll catapult us into a whole new league." She clasped my hand. "Let's do it." We spent the day preparing, selecting samples, crafting talking points, rehearsing our backstory. When the journalist arrived, camera crew in tow, I felt the familiar rush of nerves and excitement. They filmed Clara demonstrating the embossing process, leather panels pressing under the machine's rollers, threads weaving through holes with rhythmic precision. Then they captured me recounting the flood crisis, our scramble to Dover, and the triumphant delivery. As the camera light dimmed, the journalist smiled. "Your story is compelling. I think readers will love it." I exhaled. "Thank you. I just hope we did justice to the journey." Outside the studio, I paused. The world was watching now. Owen's smirk seemed less daunting when set against this new stage. That night, as I logged off, another message awaited. "Nice feature idea. Let's see how your brother's bank handles your rising fame." It was from a rival supplier, an old contact of Owen's, testing me. I stared at the screen. Competition was inevitable. But I'd proven my mettle once. Now I'd prove it again. And again. The early morning haze clung to Brighton's shoreline as I pulled my coat tighter and headed back to Dover Handcrafts. The bindery flood crisis was momentarily quelled by Marisol's extraordinary efforts. But the real challenge had just begun. Ensuring quality control across 3 studios, and maintaining the momentum that had almost slipped through our fingers. Clara joined me halfway, her breath visible in the chill, eyes bright with determination. "Let's do a walkthrough," she said, and we slipped into the cavernous workshop where leather hides gleamed under fluorescent lights. Marisol greeted us with a firm nod. "We're on schedule, but I need you to inspect every batch." I rolled up my sleeves and dove into the inspection process. I checked embossing depth, stitching tension, page alignment, and glue seams. Each journal underwent a precise test: bend and fold, water resistance spray, and thread pull. Any deviation, however slight, was flagged and set aside. By midday, we had culled 15 journals due to misaligned embossing and unacceptable rate. Clara and I huddled with Marisol, revising the press presets and retraining artisans on the digital manual's faster binding technique. "Let's aim for 0 defects," I urged. Marisol's eyes met mine. "We will." As the afternoon sun slanted through high windows, I felt the familiar rush of adrenaline. It wasn't enough to meet expectations. I needed to surpass them. At 4 p.m., the first shuttle truck departed Dover, bound for Brighton. I watched its taillights fade, then climbed into the passenger seat of the next shuttle, determined to oversee the land transit and protect against any mishap. The drive felt interminable, every bump triggering a jolt of worry. At a rest stop near Chichester, I checked my messages. Ms. Davenport had requested a mid-production update video. I recorded a quick walkthrough, highlighting quality metrics and contingency measures, and sent it off with a confident caption: "Progress is smooth. Expect pristine delivery." Clara joined me at the next pit stop, her cheeks pink from the cold. "Delivery ETA Brighton, 7 p.m., she read. My heart thumped. Perfect timing. Back at the bank that evening, we arrived to find Ms. Davenport waiting in the lobby. She smiled, but her eyes were sharp with business. "Show me." We escorted her to the storage room where the crates sat. She watched silently as we opened them, each journal a mirror of perfection: consistent embossing, pristine leather, seamless binding. She touched one lightly, then turned to me. "These are beyond expectations," she said, voice low. I allowed myself to exhale. "Thank you. It's been a team effort." She nodded. "I'll authorize the final payment and arrange for the crates to be delivered to the gala venue." Relief washed over me, but I knew the high would be fleeting. I had won this battle, but the war with my doubts, and Owen, was far from over. That night, I returned to Hove, weary but triumphant. Clara had prepared a simple dinner: soup and fresh bread. We ate in companionable silence, savoring spoons of broth and warm, crusty bites. Then, my phone buzzed with a video call request from my mother. I hesitated, knowing the conversation loomed with expectations and comparisons. I answered. Her face appeared on the screen, travel-worn lines etched around her eyes. "Isla," she said softly, "I just read the Financial Times feature. Your story, it's in print. They're calling you Brighton's next boutique sensation." I felt a tremor of pride. I saw, it feels surreal. Her lips quivered. "Your father and I, we're proud beyond words. I know Owen congratulated you, but I wanted to say it myself." My throat tightened. "Thanks, Mom." Silence stretched. Then she spoke again. "Your brother, he's planning something." My heartbeat quickened. "What do you mean?" She glanced to the side. "He's hosting a business showcase in central London, an exclusive event with corporate clients. He invited me to attend as his guest of honor. And he said he'd like you there too." I frowned. "Why would he?" She nodded. "He said he wants to, quote, introduce the family's newest entrepreneur to his network. But he's never invited you before." A chill curled in my chest. Was this genuine outreach, or another platform for him to overshadow me? I squared my shoulders. "When is it?" "Next Friday night." I exhaled, eyes drifting to Clara, who offered a supportive smile. "Then I'll be there." My mother's face broke into a proud grin. "That's my girl." The line went dead. Clara set down her bowl. "You need a plan." I nodded, mind racing. Owen's event was his element. Polished, corporate, elite. But I had something he didn't. An authentic brand story, raw resilience, and a growing media spotlight. "First," I said, "I'll prepare my pitch. Not leather journals. That's done. I'll pitch my brand vision. How Clara and I plan to expand into sustainable materials. How we'll integrate AI-driven personalization. And the new strategic partnerships we're forging. I'll show them the future." Clara's eyes lit up. and I'll design a showcase, live embossing demo, behind-the-scenes video, real-time customization. We'll outshine the bankers' suits with passion. I smiled, the spark of ambition igniting. And at the end, I'll hand out limited edition journals, invitation-only designs, embossed with the event's logo, and a call to connect. She raised her spoon in a mock toast to rewriting the narrative. I clinked my spoon against hers, to proving that passion is profit. As I lay in bed later, excitement mingled with exhaustion. The family showcase would be a new arena, one where I'd compete not just as some artisan, but as a visionary leader. Owen's challenge was clear. And this time, I would dictate the terms. The hallway light flickered as I ended the call, the weight of Ms. Davenport's flood crisis lingering in my bones. I stood there for a moment, heart racing, mind spinning through contingencies. Clara's hand on my shoulder grounded me. "We'll make it work," she said softly. I nodded, though the doubt still clawed at my confidence. The bindery flood had threatened to undo everything we'd built. Now, hours before the family showcase, I had to ensure the gala contract was irrevocably solid, and that no new crisis would unravel my momentum. The next morning, the Hove studio buzzed with urgent activity. Clara and I arrived before dawn, greeted by the hum of machinery and the rustle of leather hides. Satellite studio managers from Sheffield and Oxford had flown in overnight. Marisol's team from Dover was on standby for last-minute quality checks. We convened in the center of the open floor, a constellation of hungry artisans ready to execute my plan. I cleared my throat. "Team, yesterday's disaster tested us. Today, we show the world what resilience looks like. We have 48 hours to finalize VIP journals for the Brighton Gala and begin production on the premium collection for the family showcase." A chorus of determined nods echoed through the studio. The air crackled with energy. Clara passed around custom-designed badges, Flannery and Company, Moments That Matter, and I handed out envelopes containing the final specifications and personalized thank you notes for each artisan's dedication. By mid-morning, production lines hummed in synchronized precision. I moved among the workstations, inspecting embossing plates, guiding stitch tension, and personally embossing Ms. Davenport's initials on a final test batch. The delicate foil stamping gleamed like burnished gold, a small miracle of craftsmanship and perseverance. But even as I oversaw production, another part of my mind churned with worry: the family showcase in London. Owen's network would be there: bankers, investors, corporate clients. I needed to ensure my brand presentation eclipsed his event. Clara and I had spent nights crafting an immersive experience, an augmented reality, AR, demo of journal customization, a virtual tour of our European expansion plans, and interactive leather selection stations where guests could feel the difference between tanned hides and bespoke finishes. I slipped away to my office corner and opened the sleek black box containing my AR goggles. Above the workstation, large screens projected our brand's logo. Within minutes, I was enveloped in a digital showroom, journals floating in midair, leather textures transforming with a wave of my hand, and animated infographics mapping our supply chain's global reach. It was the future of artisanal commerce, a fusion of tradition and technology, exactly the story I wanted to tell. Clara joined me, her eyes alight with excitement. "This will blow their minds." I smiled, heart swelling. "It has to." Afternoon arrived, and the final crates for Brighton Bank's gala were sealed. We loaded them onto the last delivery van bound for Brighton, ensuring a second contingency truck was ready if needed. I drafted one final status update for Ms. Davenport, a succinct message underscored with confidence and gratitude. Back at the studio, our focus shifted to the London showcase. The central London pop-up space at Mayfair was being prepared. Sleek white walls adorned with our journals and prototypes, plush velvet chairs arranged for live demos, and a wooden pedestal where we'd debut the premium collection's centerpiece, a journal bound in rare blue yew bark leather, rumored to be extinct, sourced from a sustainable program in Sweden. My phone buzzed, a text from Owen. "Family showcase. Ready to be amazed?" I paused before typing my reply. "Bring your A game, I know I will," and I hit send. The evening descended into a whirl of final checks. Clara and I loaded crates into a black Mercedes van with Mayfair plates. We rehearsed our walkthrough, timing each demo, calibrating AR sequences, and testing audio cues. By midnight, we collapsed on a couch, exhaustion mingled with adrenaline. I closed my eyes, envisioning the next day, guests arriving in tailored suits and elegant gowns, their curiosity piqued by the promise of an artisanal revolution. I fell asleep with the AR goggles in my hands, dreams of leather and gold foil dancing behind my eyelids. When dawn broke, Clara and I stood at the entrance of the Mayfair showcase space, greeting the event staff. The address was discreet, known only to our largest clients and Owen's invitees. Word had spread that this was the event to attend. At precisely 10 a.m., the doors swung open. The first visitors trickled in. A venture capitalist from Shoreditch, a tech founder from Cambridge, and Ms. Davenport's marketing director. He'd come to show extra support. I guided them through the AR experience, watching their eyes widen as virtual journals morphed around them. They ran their fingers along real leather samples, comparing textures and finishes. I presented the premium collection's Blue U bark centerpiece, explaining its rarity and sustainable origins. Their applause felt like validation of every sleepless night and crisis we'd weathered. As the line swelled, Owen appeared at the doorway, flanked by his banker friends in tailored suits. His gaze swept over the setup, his expression unreadable. I met his eyes with a steady smile and continued my pitch. At Flannery & Company, we believe in creating products that tell stories. Each journal is a canvas for your legacy, and we harness the latest in AR technology to bring that story to life. Guests murmured in appreciation, snapping photos. Owen glanced at his phone, then back at me, my confidence setting the stage for an unspoken rivalry. Soon, a hush fell as I unveiled the limited edition giveaway, sleek black journals embossed with Mayfair 2025, in iridescent foil, each containing a hidden QR code granting a 1-year subscription to our digital design portal. Guests gasped, and many lined up to claim their piece. I watched as they walked away, pressing attendees' hands, collecting business cards, and forging new partnerships. Owen's heels clicked as he approached. He extended his hand. Impressive! I shook it, feeling the electricity between us. Thank you. He nodded at the AR display. This is next level. My smile deepened. This is just the beginning. He raised a toast, a flute of champagne. To your success. I lifted my glass. And to proving that passion, resilience, and innovation will always outshine doubt. Our glasses met in a soft chime. Around us, the Mayfair space buzzed with excitement, partnerships in bloom, and the promise of a brand reborn. As the day wound down, I received a message from the Financial Times. They wanted to expand the feature into a full-length profile. I drafted a reply, heart-soaring. But before I clicked send, I glanced at Owen, who was surrounded by bankers eager to learn about my method. The sleek AR setup had transformed him from skeptic to advocate. I realized then that the most powerful triumph wasn't in winning one contract or outshining one sibling. It was in rewriting the narrative, turning every mockery into momentum, every setback into strategy. I stepped back, surveying my journey, from leather scraps on my studio floor to a Mayfair showcase that set the industry abuzz. The story was mine to tell, and I would tell it again and again, each chapter more electrifying than the last. The mid-morning light filtered through the ornate window panes of the Flannery family's garden room as I prepared for the next phase of my journey, the interview with the Financial Times. Clara spread out printed press clippings and notes across the mahogany desk, her meticulously organized bullet points shimmering on the page like a roadmap to success. This is where they profile entrepreneurs on the rise, she said, adjusting her reading glasses. We need to nail this. It's not just about the bindery flood or the Dover rescue. It's about framing your narrative as a visionary leader in artisanal commerce. I sipped my chamomile tea, the warmth anchoring my nerves. I want to emphasize resilience, I replied. How failure taught me to innovate and how we're building a scalable, sustainable model, not just a hobby, but a brand with global reach. She nodded. Let's weave in your AR integration, the pop-up success in Mayfair, and the upcoming family showcase. I ran a hand through my hair, recalling the hum of the Dover press, the hush of the Mayfair reveal, and the clink of crystal glasses at the family dinner. Each moment had been a test, and I'd passed. Now, I would share it with the world. At 11 a.m., the Times journalist arrived, tall, dark-haired, with a notebook and a professional curiosity that seemed to hum in the air between us. He greeted me with a firm handshake and settled onto the edge of the velvet couch. "Isla Flannery," he began, reading from his pad. "Your story has captured readers' imaginations. Tell me about the moment you knew your side hustle was no longer just a side project." I leaned forward. It was the morning I stood in Brighton Bank's main hall, contract in hand, and realized they saw me as a business partner, not just an artisan. That moment crystallized my vision. Art and commerce can coexist at the highest level. His pen scratched across the page. "And the flood? How did you pivot so quickly?" I recounted the frantic calls to Dorchester Handcrafts, the tense hours reviewing damage reports, and the marathon drive to Dover. The journalist's eyes flicked with admiration as I described the AR goggles and the virtual showroom I'd built to showcase our vision. As we wrapped up, he asked, "Where do you see Flannery & Company in 5 years?" My thoughts soared. Global workshops, AI-driven personalization platforms, leather sourcing cooperatives, empowering small farmers in Uganda and India, leading the industry in sustainable, tech-integrated craftsmanship, and launching an educational arm to train the next generation of artisans. He closed his notebook. "Thank you. This will make a compelling feature." I exhaled, relief and excitement swirling. Clara and I exchanged triumphant smiles. Another milestone crossed, but the path ahead loomed even larger. The afternoon was a blur of meetings: leather suppliers in Italy, AR developers in Berlin, and a call with a potential investor from New York. Each conversation was a brick in the foundation I was building, a global network that began with a leather journal on my lap. That evening, I returned to the family dining room, another invitation from Owen. But this time, I carried the fresh newspaper feature, its headline glowing, "From Side Hustle to Supplier, Isla Flannery's Artisanal Empire." I laid it across the table before our family. Mother's eyes brimmed with tears. Father patted my hand. Clara stood beside me, her presence a steady reminder of unity. Owen studied the paper, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded slowly. "Well done." I felt something shift. Respect, hard-won but finally present. Dinner concluded, and I stepped into the veranda, the summer night's warmth mingling with the scent of roses. Clara joined me, offering a fresh cup of tea. "We did it," she whispered. I nodded, gazing at the moonlit garden. "Yes, but this is just the beginning." Because for every challenge overcome, another waited on the horizon. And I was ready to meet each one with the same grit, creativity, and unyielding passion that had brought me this far. The soft glow of morning light filtered through the curtains of my Hove studio as I settled into my favorite leather armchair, the comforting scent of tanned hides and beeswax polish lingering in the air. A steaming mug of peppermint tea warmed my hands, its cool aroma balancing the tang of adrenaline coursing through me. Today marked the beginning of the final lap, a week of nonstop production, media interviews, and unfamiliar territory that lay ahead with the family showcase in London closing in. Clara burst into the room, phone pressed to her ear, eyes sparkling with news. "Isla, the Financial Times feature is live online." They titled it "From Side Hustle to the Lead Supplier: How One Woman Revolutionized Corporate Gifting." The comments are already lighting up social media. My heart soared as I set down my mug. "Let me see." She turned her phone so I could read the headline and opening paragraph. A crisp account of my journey, from the cramped Brighton apartment to securing the gala contract, weathering the bindery flood, and orchestrating the Dover Handcrafts rescue. The article painted a portrait of resilience, interwoven with entrepreneurial ingenuity. As I scrolled, a swell of pride and urgency knotted in my chest. The publicity would drive new orders, new inquiries, and fresh expectations. There was no time to rest. Clara pocketed her phone. We should celebrate, but there's no time. Orders just came in from fintech firms in Frankfurt, a marketing agency in Stockholm, and 2 boutique hotels in Barcelona. We need to crank up production. I rose, energy surging. Let's do it. Hawthorne Leather arrives tomorrow, and I have a meeting with the AI personalization team at 2 p.m. But first, I want to check in with Dover Handcrafts for final QC feedback. I tapped a quick message to Marisol. Minutes later, Marisol's reply pinged. Everything on track. 0.5% defect rate. Crates shipping by tonight. Congratulations on the FT feature. A grin spread across my face. We're unstoppable. Clara and I high-fived, then plunged into the tasks of the day. The Hove studio was a symphony of motion. Artisans in aprons stitching, presses rolling, pages being cut, covers assembled. I moved from station to station, tweaking embossing machines, sampling thread tension, inspecting prototypes. Each journal passed under my critical gaze. During a brief pause, I caught Clara reviewing our AR code on her laptop. I'm integrating real-time analytics so guests at the London showcase can see customization choices trending live on social media. We'll stream it during the event. She smiled, her excitement contagious. I checked my watch, 1:30 p.m., time for the AI personalization meeting. I donned a tailored blazer and hopped in a cab bound for the co-working hub in Brighton Digital Quarter. Inside a sleek conference room, I met with Dr. Miguel Reyes, our lead AI engineer, and his team. They demonstrated a beta platform enabling clients to upload a handwriting sample, favorite quotes, or even a signature, which the AI algorithm would translate into a unique embossing pattern. The process was magical, a fusion of tradition and technology. Dr. Reyes extended a tablet. Try it yourself. I wrote a line in my own hand, moments that matter, and watched as the AI generated a master template. I nodded with approval. This will be a game changer at the showcase. He grinned. We're on schedule for deployment. I laid out my vision, the live kiosk, the AR demo, social sharing integration. By the end of the hour, we had a roadmap that would turn passive guests into active participants. Back at the studio, I relayed the news to Clara. We're ready. AI kiosks, AR goggles, premium prototypes. Everything's aligned for London. She hugged me. We've come so far. I squeezed her shoulder. Tomorrow, we finalize packaging for Barcelona, Frankfurt, and Stockholm orders. But tonight, I want us to rehearse the showcase pitch. That evening, in the dim glow of the studio's Edison bulbs, Clara and I ran through our presentation. We practiced the walkthrough, timed each segment, and refined our talking points. Her descriptive flair and my technical precision meshed seamlessly. At midnight, we collapsed into chairs, exhaustion etched on our faces. Outside, the moon shimmered over the sea. I'm proud of you, Clara whispered. We did this together. I reached for her hand. We have to keep pushing. Owen's showcase is waiting, and he'll bring the pressure. She squeezed my hand. And you'll shine. Morning broke with a flurry of activity. Hawthorne Leather delivery, Dover Crates arrival, and a final call with Ms. Davenport to confirm VIP attendee details for Brighton's gala. By late afternoon, I loaded the last shipment bound for Germany, Spain, and Sweden. Then the black Mercedes van arrived for London, driver clad in a crisp uniform, crates stacked in perfect order. Clara and I climbed in, the van's engine roaring to life. We reviewed the event flow en route. Guest arrivals, AI kiosk demos, AR immersions, premium collection reveal, and closing remarks. The journey to London felt both familiar and new, a reminder of how far we'd come. At the Mayfair pop-up space, final touches were underway. The pristine white walls were alive with displays of journals, prototypes, and interactive stations. Photographers adjusted lights. Event staff took positions. I slipped on a tailored navy sheath dress, professional yet approachable, and checked my reflection. Clara looked radiant in a matching ensemble. Deep breath, I said. She nodded, offering a reassuring smile. Doors opened at 10 a.m. The cascade of bankers, investors, and journalists surged in. Cameras flashed. Voices hummed with curiosity. I guided a journalist from TechCrunch through the kiosk, watching her eyes widen as she crafted a custom embossing design, fearless through adversity. Meanwhile, I engaged a group of boutique hotel managers from Barcelona, showcasing our sustainable leather sourcing program. Clara managed the AR station, goggles, floating journals, and immersive storytelling. Attendees laughed, gasped, and engaged. Social media posts tagged our event in real time. At noon, a buzz rippled through the crowd. Owen had arrived, accompanied by a contingent of seasoned bankers. He paused at the entrance, surveying the scene. I spotted him and raised a hand in greeting. He walked over, a glass of champagne in his hand. "Impressive," he said. "You've outdone yourself." His tone carried genuine admiration. I smiled. "Thank you, Owen." He gestured around. "This is a whole new level." I nodded. It's where craftsmanship meets innovation. Then, in a quieter tone, I asked, "How does it feel to be part of this story?" He looked at me, pride and humility mingling in his gaze. "Honored to be here." His acknowledgement felt like the final validation, a bridge between sibling rivalry and mutual respect. As the afternoon sun slanted through the windows, Clara and I took the stage for our closing remarks. I spoke of resilience, of turning mockery into momentum, and of building a brand that transcended the side hustle label. The audience erupted into applause, and flashes lit the room. I realized then that this moment, this powerful culmination, was more than a showcase. It was the definitive chapter in my journey from doubt to distinction. And as I looked at Clara, Ms. Davenport, Marisol, and finally at Owen, I knew that the story was still unfolding, each part richer and more electrifying than the last. Morning light seeped through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my Brighton studio as I awoke to an inbox flooded with congratulations and new challenges. Clara and I shared a look of exhilaration and exhaustion over lukewarm coffee. The Mayfair showcase had been a triumph, but the real work lay ahead, scaling our operations across continents. I scrolled through my emails. The top messages demanded immediate attention: an invitation to present at a leading finance conference in New York, a potential partnership with a sustainable materials startup in Vancouver, and a press request from Vogue Business for an exclusive profile. Beneath them lay an email from my brother Owen. "Call me, important bank developments." I felt a pang of anticipation and wariness. Family and business had always been an uneasy balance. Clara touched my arm. "Where do you want to start?" I exhaled. "Let's finalize the AI personalization launch for the fintech clients in Frankfurt first. Then we'll prepare proposals for New York and Vancouver." Owen's call can wait 30 minutes. We dove into strategy. Clara handled the technical briefings while I drafted pitch decks for our new markets. The studio hummed with activity as artisans prepared samples for international shipment, a bespoke line embossed with gold foil for a hedge fund conference, and a collection using vegan leather alternatives for the Vancouver partnership. By mid-afternoon, the first crates were loaded. As I signed off on shipping documents, my phone buzzed. An incoming call from Owen. I hesitated, then answered. "Isla," his voice was unexpectedly earnest. "I need your help. The bank's new digital division is launching a corporate gifting platform. They want to integrate custom-branded products. I want you to lead the Supplier initiative." My heart raced. A full-circle moment. My side hustle becoming the lead partner for his bank's new venture. But I sensed there was more beneath the surface. "Owen, I'm honored. What's the catch?" He paused. "The division is rigorous. Data security, rapid fulfillment, seamless digital integration. I need your AI platform ready within 3 weeks, and a global supply chain. I know you can do it, but I need your commitment." I leaned against my desk. 3 weeks is tight, but possible. I'll need Clara's team fully on board, and will subcontract additional capacity in Toronto. But what's in it for Flannery and Company? He cleared his throat. Equity stake in the digital division, prioritized vendor status, and will co-brand the platform. It's a chance to scale massively, Isla. My mind raced with possibilities, and the pressure. I need to discuss this with Clara, and I'll need all specifications by tomorrow morning. You'll have them, he assured. I hung up and turned to Clara, whose eyes were wide with anticipation. It's game time, I said. Owen wants us to lead his bank's digital gifting platform. she grinned. Then let's rise to the occasion. We spent the evening mapping out an aggressive plan: AI customization modules, supplier partnerships in Toronto and Seoul, data security audits, and an integrated client portal. Hours blurred as we drafted workflows and assigned responsibilities. At midnight, I took a moment alone on the studio balcony, the sea breeze carrying the promise of new horizons and new perils. Success had propelled me into uncharted territory: corporate alliances with my own brother, global expansions, and technological frontiers. Each step forward held the potential for triumph and the risk of catastrophic failure. Below, Clara joined me, her silhouette illuminated by the moonlight. "Are you ready?" she whispered. I nodded, determination firming in my chest, more than ever. Behind us, the brightened skyline shimmered. Before us, the world awaited. The sunrise painted the brightened skyline in pastel hues as I arrived at the studio before dawn. Clara and I had decided that this morning's energy would set the tone for the week, a synchronized sprint to support the global pilot launches and prepare for the next family dinner back in the Victorian manor. I stepped inside to find Marisol waiting, cradling a steaming cup of coffee like a lifeline. Behind her, crates stamped New York Pilot and Singapore Pilot stood half unloaded, the promise of our first global tests tangible in the air. "They've cleared customs already," Marisol reported in a hushed tone. "I'll handle reception and initial QC. You and Clara need to finalize your playbook for the workshops." I nodded, adrenaline coursing through me. "Let's go over the agenda one more time." We gathered around the long oak table, its surface strewn with printouts, slide decks, workshop schedules, and detailed shipping timelines. Clara pointed to the New York schedule. Day 1, executive briefing at the New York Private Bank HQ. Day 2, hands-on customization workshop for top-tier clients. Day 3, press tour and live stream Q&A. Then we fly to Singapore. I ran a hand through my hair. We need contingency for delays, weather, customs, time zones. I'll have our logistics team on standby for charter flights if needed. Plus, we can live stream the customization demo from Brighton to New York if crates get held up. Marisol glanced at me. Impressive foresight. And we have spare journals. Prototype vault is stocked for emergencies. The plan solidified. Split teams, redundancies, and layered communications. By the time the studio lights brightened, we had a robust blueprint. That afternoon, I boarded the private jet chartered to New York, Clara by my side. The cabin hummed with quiet efficiency, and I used the flight hours to rehearse my keynote address. Artisan Enterprise in the Digital Age. I reviewed data points on global leather procurement, AI integration metrics, and projected revenue boosts. Everything to persuade a room full of skeptical bankers. We landed at Teterboro and proceeded to the towering glass facade of the Private Bank HQ, its lobby pulsing with midtown energy. My phone buzzed. A text from Owen, back in Brighton. "Kill it today." I smiled and replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Inside the executive boardroom, suited VIPs assembled, wallets thick, expectations thin. I took center stage and began. Ladies and gentlemen, for centuries, leather-bound journals have served as repositories of ideas, inspirations, and legacies. Today, we marry that timeless tradition with cutting-edge personalization technology, powered by AI and global artisanal collaboration. I clicked to the next slide. A video montage of artisans stitching at Dover, Marisol's team inspecting in Hove, and Clara navigating the AR showroom. Applause rippled. Our pilot demonstrates how, in under 48 hours, we can deliver bespoke, corporate-grade journals anywhere in the world. And with our digital platform, clients can create, preview, and order from a secure portal without compromising data privacy. I concluded with the core value: resilience, innovation, and personal connection, our guiding principles in every product. Questions followed: pricing, scalability, compliance standards, sustainability practices. With each answer, I felt the room's skepticism melting into curiosity. And finally, trust. After the session, a line formed. Hedge fund managers, CEOs of private equity firms, and tech investors, each eager to secure trial orders. My phone glowed with new meeting requests and contract drafts. Clara watched from the side, pride in her gaze. Nailed it! I exhaled, the weight of success tempered by exhaustion. Now for the hands-on workshop. We guided participants through the AI personalization station, executives experimenting with font styles, embossing textures, and real-time sentiment tweaks. Their faces lit up as they crafted journals with their own writing samples. Transformations smarter than any off-the-shelf customization. A Wall Street Journal reporter snapped photos and took notes for an upcoming industry feature. On day 2, we held a press tour at the studio in Hove, live-streamed back to New York and Singapore. Demonstrations, interviews, and a peek behind the workshop doors captivated online audiences. Exhaustion clawed at me, but I refused to slow. The momentum was too critical. Every delayed action meant lost opportunities. By day 3, we packed and flew to Singapore. The city's skyline glittered as our plane descended into Marina Bay. Here, the audience was different. Family-owned conglomerates, sovereign fund representatives, and luxury hospitality groups. In the luminous glass pavilion of the Asia Gifting Forum, I took the stage and refreshed my message for this new demographic, integrating local artisanal motifs, Batavia batik patterns, Peranakan tile motifs, into our leather embossing repertoire. Clara demonstrated live customization kiosks, guiding attendees through language-specific embossing Chinese characters, Tamil script, and English monograms. The AI seamlessly adapted to diverse cultural aesthetics. After the demonstration, a group of Singaporean luxury resort owners approached with proposals to supply journals for their guest suites, an invitation that would mark our entry into the high-end hospitality market. I felt the exhilarating blend of relief and anticipation. Our platform had proven its global worth within one whirlwind week. A few days later, I returned to Brighton with Clara and Marisol in tow. The Hove studio welcomed us with flowers and cheers. We'd brought home pilot success, signed contracts from New York Private Bank, pledge letters from Singapore resorts, and momentum that would carry us into our next expansion phase. That evening, as exhaustion gave way to euphoria, I climbed into a cab bound for the family manor. Owen had planned another dinner, this time to celebrate our collective achievements. I arrived to find the dining room bathed in candlelight, my family gathered with proud smiles. Father raised his glass. Tuila and Clara, renowned across the globe. Mother chimed in, eyes shining. We couldn't be prouder. Owen's gaze met mine across the table. He raised his fork. To my sister, the supplier who dared to dream big. My heart swelled as the words settled. The arc of mocking laughter had been replaced by genuine admiration, and Clara squeezed my hand in solidarity. But beneath the warmth, a new challenge stirred, sustaining this exponential growth without losing the craft's soul. Evening's clink of crystal glasses felt like a prelude to the next chapter, a story of continued reinvention, of art and technology dancing in tandem. As I sat back, savoring the moment, I realized the true triumph, reconciling family, transforming doubt into respect, and proving that a side hustle, when nurtured with passion and grit, could change the world. Tomorrow, the journey continued. The first light of dawn filtered through the tall sash windows of my Hove studio, illuminating rows of workbenches where leather hides of every shade were carefully draped. The air was heavy with the scent of tanned leather, beeswax polish, and freshly steamed wool, an aroma I'd come to associate with purpose and possibility. I stood at the threshold, coffee in hand, and surveyed the scene. Clara and Marisol conferring over production charts, artisans threading needles at the stitch stations, and the faint hum of my laptop's processing fan as it ran overnight analytics on our global supply chain metrics. Today was different. The initial pilot of the digital gifting platform had concluded successfully, and the global contracts from New York Bank, Singapore resorts, and Frankfurt fintech firms were signed. Yet, the true test of our business acumen, and an unexpected challenge, awaited: the upcoming International Stationery Expo in Berlin, where an entire hall would be devoted to the future of premium stationery. It was there that I would face my greatest critics and advocates alike, showcasing not just our leather journals, but the synergy of artisan tradition and AI-driven personalization. Clara joined me at my desk, her cheeks flushed with the morning's excitement. "Berlin Expo is in 2 days," she said, consulting her tablet. "We need to finalize the pavilion design, product lineup, and presentation flow. Also, there's a keynote invitation from the Expo Committee for you to deliver the opening address on Craft and Code, the New Frontier of Luxury Gifting." My pulse quickened. The opening keynote was the coveted slot, in front of industry leaders, top-tier journalists, and hundreds of potential clients. "I want to make an impact," I replied, smoothing my palm over the polished oak desktop. "Let's integrate live demos, AI embossing, AR showroom, and the unveiling of our next premium collection, the Nightfall series, featuring midnight black leather with constellation-inspired foil patterns." Clara's eyes sparkled. "And we can project celestial animations on the pavilion's ceiling, synced with the AR experience. Guests will feel like they're riding under the stars." I grinned. Exactly. 2 days later, I arrived in Berlin. The Expo Center's modern glass facade reflected the crisp autumn sky, and a throng of exhibitors bustled inside. My booth, Pavilion A1, was set at the heart of the Luxury and Innovation Hall. Clara and I had overseen every detail: white marble countertops displaying leather samples, interactive kiosks for AI personalization, and a 360-degree AR dome projecting constellations. We stood back as the expo opened. Industry heavyweights, stationery connoisseurs, and press swarmed our pavilion, lured by the promise of cutting-edge artisanry. I guided them through the experience, touching the leather samples, crafting custom embossing on the touchscreen kiosks, and donning AR goggles to watch journals blossom into cosmic landscapes. Mid-morning, I donned a sleek microphone and ascended the stage for my keynote. Under the bright spotlights, the audience fell silent. I paused, absorbing the moment, the culmination of years of toil, doubt, and triumph. "Good morning," I began, my voice steady. "We stand at a crossroads where centuries-old traditions meet the boundless possibilities of technology. At Flannery & Company, we believe that true luxury lies not in mass production, but in personalized experiences, crafted by skilled hands and guided by intelligent design. Today, I invite you to journey with us into the next frontier of premium gifting." I clicked a remote, and the dome above flickered to life with stars. Immersive music played as the audience gazed upward. "This is Nightfall," I said, gesturing to the constellation animations. Each pattern on these journals is inspired by real star maps, translated through AI to reflect your personal story. An assistant passed around samples, midnight blue leather journals, embossed with shimmering constellations. The crowd marveled, fingertips tracing the foil patterns. A hush descended as I recounted the journey. The bindery flood, the Dover Handcrafts partnership, the global pilot launches, and the vibrant showcase in London. Each chapter illustrated the resilience, innovation, and authenticity at the core of our brand. But this is only the beginning, I concluded. Our vision extends beyond journals, to immersive storytelling experiences, collaborative workshops that empower artisans worldwide, and a digital platform where every individual's voice can be etched in leather and light. Thunderous applause erupted. I allowed myself a moment of triumph before returning to the pavilion floor, where guests flocked to secure orders. Luxury retailers from Paris and Tokyo placed advance bookings for the Nightfall series. Journal enthusiasts lined up for personalized demos. Press photographers captured the pavilion's ethereal glow. Late afternoon, I stepped away to a quiet lounge, pulling out my phone. A message from Owen lit the screen. "Proud of you. Let's discuss next steps in Berlin tonight." My chest tightened. I typed back, "Let's meet after the Expo Gala dinner." At the Expo's designer networking gala that evening, I navigated the cultured throng, my midnight blue dress a reflection of the Nightfall series. Glasses of champagne flared in the dim light. I spotted Owen across the room, engaged in conversation with a group of German bankers. His gaze met mine, and he excused himself. We met on a balcony overlooking Berlin's illuminated River Spree, The city's lights shimmered like constellations come to Earth. "Isla," he began, voice low above the distant hum of conversation, "I've secured a meeting with the CEO of Eurolux, Europe's leading luxury conglomerate. They're intrigued by our Nightfall concept and want a private collection for their flagship boutiques." My heart leapt. That's incredible, but it will require expanded production capacity and exclusive distribution rights. He nodded. "I've already drafted a proposal. Eurolux will guarantee a minimum order of 10,000 units per quarter. In return, we grant them a 6-month exclusivity window in continental Europe." I felt the thrill and the weight. Such an order could catapult us to new heights, but risked straining our artisanal capacity and diluting brand exclusivity. "We need to ensure quality and brand integrity," I said. "I'll need oversight on every batch, and we should limit the production to artisan-verified journals only, no industrial shortcuts." He studied me, respect shining in his eyes. "Understood. Let's draft the terms together." Back at the pavilion, Clara joined us, her expression radiant. Eurolux clients were enchanted by Nightfall, especially the constellation embossing. "They're ready to tour our studio." I turned to Owen. "Then let's finalize logistics. Private studio visits, artisan interviews, and real-time demos. If they see the soul behind the product, they'll understand our standards." He smiled, a rare moment of solidarity between siblings. "Together, we'll make it happen." The rest of the night passed in a flurry of toasts, negotiations, and shared visions. As I retired to my hotel room, exhaustion settled in, but my mind raced with possibilities. The Nightfall series and the Eurolux opportunity represented a new chapter of growth, collaboration, and creative elevation. Clara's text pinged. "Congrats on the keynote. Can't wait to celebrate when we get home." I typed back, "We're just getting started." And as I drifted to sleep, the Berlin lights danced behind my eyelids, stars guiding the next steps of a journey that had begun with a single handcrafted leather journal and had transformed into a constellation of dreams brought to life. The day I returned to Brighton felt nothing like the triumphant homecoming I had imagined. The salty sea breeze and familiar seagull calls were muted by the weight of the Eurolux negotiations. Clara and I had spent the flight home drafting exclusivity clauses, mapping studio schedules, and recalibrating our production forecasts. Now, standing in the Hove Studios entryway, where strings of Edison bulbs cast a warm glow over stacked leather hides, I took a steadying breath. Marisol greeted me with a look that combined relief and curiosity. "How did Berlin go? Was Eurolux on board?" she asked, setting down her steaming cup of coffee. I nodded, walking toward the long oak table at the room's center where we'd held countless strategy sessions. "They loved Nightfall," I said, rubbing my palms together. "But they want a private collection and a studio tour next week. And they expect maximum quality control. No deviations from artisan standards." Her eyes lit up at the challenge. "We'll prepare accordingly. I'll oversee the prototypes, and Clara can ready the AR experience for their executives." I glanced at Clara, who had just walked in carrying a tablet full of digital mock-ups. "Remember," I said, "this isn't just another client. Eurolux is a global tastemaker. If we impress them, our brand will be synonymous with luxury across Europe, and potentially beyond." Clara nodded. "Understood. I'll finalize the constellation displays and coordinate with our VR team for the studio immersive walkthrough." I allowed myself a moment of satisfaction as we fell into the familiar rhythm of planning and execution. We had weathered floods, international launches, and family dramas. Eurolux was simply the next test. Over the next 3 days, the Hove studio became a hive of meticulous activity. Marisol worked closely with Eurolux's lead designer Monsieur Dupont, who had flown in from Paris to review the Nightfall prototype series. Each journal was scrutinized. Thread count, foil emboss depth, edge finishing, and even the scent of the leather. Dupont insisted it convey a subtle jasmine undertone to match Eurolux's floral perfumes. Meanwhile, Clara transformed a spare wing of the studio into an AR showroom. Immersive panels lining the walls displayed constellation patterns, dancing in soft light, and touchscreen kiosks allowed Dupont's team to manipulate embossing variables. They responded with measured enthusiasm, probing the AI's algorithmic precision and debating the cultural symbolism of certain star maps. On the day of the private studio tour, the Hove workshop hummed with energy. I guided Eurolux's delegation, DuPont, several C-suite executives, and a handful of celebrity influencers through the production floor. Steam rose from embossing presses as skilled artisans pressed foil into supple leather, and threads wove through holes in rhythmic time. They watched artisans hand-polish each journal's edges and inspect every grain. DuPont paused to study the marbled patterns of the leather, nodding appreciatively. Then, in the AR wing, Clara activated the VR headsets. Floating journals materialized around them, each shimmering constellation morphing in response to voice commands. The executives gasped as they saw their own names intricately woven into foil-based designs. When the tour concluded, we convened in the studio's glass conference room overlooking the sea, a private enclave of polished oak and glass. I presented the final proposal, a quarterly release of 10,000 Nightfall journals, each batch uniquely themed by season and regional star map, accompanied by a bespoke digital platform co-branded with Eurolux. DuPont leaned back, steepling his fingers. Isla, I've traveled the world seeking perfect craftsmanship, and your work surpasses my expectations. Eurolux officially commits to this collection. We will finalize the exclusivity contract by week's end. Relief and triumph rippled through me. I glanced at Clara and Marisol, whose proud smiles reflected every sleepless night and hurdle we'd overcome. That evening, Owen and I sat on the terrace of the family manor, the sea breeze cool against our suits. A bottle of vintage champagne sat between us, and the glow of the manor's lights cast a golden hue over the manicured lawn. He raised his glass. To Eurolux, they're in the bag. I sipped the champagne, savoring its complex notes before answering. To craftsmanship, innovation, and partnership. He nodded. You've proven yourself at every turn. I let the words sink in. The mocking laughter of past years had been replaced by genuine respect and a shared vision for the future. Then, in a quiet moment, I broached the next frontier. Owen, what comes after Eurolux? We've expanded globally, but I want to ensure we don't lose our roots. I'd like to launch a foundation, Flannery & Company Artisan Trust, to train and empower young artisans in developing regions. He studied me across the table, the sea reflecting the stars above. I think that's exactly the kind of vision this family needs. Count me in. Our partnership, once tenuous and fraught with sibling rivalry, had evolved into a dynamic collaboration, blending finance and craft, corporate strategy, and creative vision. The Flannery legacy was no longer confined to a banking empire. It had grown into a movement of innovation, empowerment, and artistry. Back inside the manor, family gathered in the drawing room. Father regaled everyone with news of the Eurolux deal. Mother served crystal glasses of port, and Clara and I shared knowing glances. It was a celebration not just of contracts and milestones, but of a journey that began with a side hustle and had erupted into an artisanal revolution. The path ahead, foundation building, global expansion, and technological evolution, beckoned like the uncharted constellations that had guided our journey. As laughter filled the drawing room and the night deepened, I realized that success was never a destination, but an ongoing story of resilience, dreaming bigger, and forging partnerships that transcend expectations. And tomorrow, we would start the next chapter. The roar of the propellers faded as we lifted off from Heathrow, London's sprawling skyline giving way to an endless expanse of cloud and sky. Clara sat beside me in the chartered turboprop, her tablet open to the itinerary for the next 5 days. Ahead of us lay the inaugural rollout of the Flannery & Company Artisan Trust in the heart of Rajasthan, India, the first of a dozen planned centers designed to uplift local leather artisans and pass on the centuries-old craft traditions we cherished. For me, this moment carried the weight of every late-night workshop, every flood crisis, and every corporate triumph that had led to this leap from luxury gifting to global empowerment. I closed my eyes and let the hum of the engines guide me. The Trust's launch had seemed a dream when Owen and I first discussed it under the flickering lights of our family manor. But now it was a living, breathing initiative, with thousands of livelihoods hanging in the balance. I traced the seat's embossed leather, remembering my first journal prototype, and promised myself I would honor the artisan legacy by nurturing their skills, not replacing them with machines. Clara cleared her throat, drawing me from my reverie. "We've got about 2 hours until we land in Jaipur," she said, gesturing at the flight tracker on her screen. "The Trust's coordinator, Arjun, has arranged vehicles to meet us, but he warns that monsoon season has left some of the village roads impassable." She paused. "We'll have to adjust our schedule if roads are flooded." I nodded, steeling myself for unpredictability. "Our priority is meeting the artisans on the ground. We'll adapt as needed." Touchdown in Jaipur felt like stepping into another world. The air heavy with heat and the scent of spices, rickshaws darting around dusty lanes, and swaths of saffron fabric billowing in the breeze. Our team, Clara, Marisol, Arjun, and I, boarded a convoy of armored SUVs, the vehicles splashing through puddles on the potholed road. As we left the city's pink sandstone palaces behind, the landscape flattened into fields of millet and scattered clusters of mud brick homes. Hours later, our convoy ground to a halt before a low archway bearing the carved motif of a stylized elephant, the entrance to the Painslana artisan village. We parked beside a stone courtyard where 24 leatherworkers, clad in vibrant kurta pajamas and headscarves, had gathered. Their faces, lined with years of sun and toil, lit up as we emerged from our vehicles. Arjun stepped forward, arms outstretched. "Welcome, Ms. Flannery, Ms. Clara. We are honored to host the first Flannery & Company Artisan Trust workshop." I swept my gaze across the group, proud and nervous. I raised my hand in greeting. "Namaste. It's an honor to be here with you all. Today marks the beginning of our partnership, a chance to share skills, sustain traditions, and build new opportunities for your families and communities." A hush fell over the courtyard as I distributed cloth-bound notebooks embossed with the Artisan Trust logo, interlocking hands and a leather stamp. "These journals are your canvas," I continued. "Over the next 5 days, we'll explore advanced tooling techniques, digital design integration, and new markets for premium handcrafted leather goods. And in return, I want to learn from you, your methods, your stories, your heritage." Then behind me, I heard a low rumble. Dark clouds rolled over the horizon, and within moments, sheets of rain pelted the courtyard. Gasps and screams rose, and we scrambled for shelter beneath the archway as the courtyard flooded. Clara's voice cut through the chaos. "Arjun, are the workshop tents ready?" He nodded. "Follow me." We dashed through ankle-deep water toward a row of heavy canvas pavilions with sloping roofs. Inside, artisans had already set up wooden tables, tools, hides, and a generator humming to power overhead lights. But the deluge revealed deeper problems. The generator sputtered and died as water seeped through the floorboards. Equipment hummed to a halt. The downpour intensified, drumming on the canvas like 1,000 drums. I felt panic rise. "Marisol, can we save the hides?" She crouched beside crates of vegetable-tanned leather. "Some are soaked, but we can salvage the ones on pallets. We need a place to dry them immediately." Quote. Arjun barked orders to nearby villagers, who rallied to hoist hides onto raised platforms and cover them with tarps. Clara sprinted to the back of the pavilion, retrieving large plastic sheets to protect tooling benches. I knelt beside her, dampening hope with pragmatism. "This weather was worse than expected," I muttered. "We'll need to delay the workshop until the rain eases." But just as I spoke, a loud crack echoed overhead. Lightning struck a palm tree at the pavilion's edge, shearing off its crown and sending a cascade of fronds crashing to the ground. Villagers screamed and scattered. My heart lurched as I realized how close we'd stood. "Everyone stay inside," I shouted, arms flung wide to usher artisans into the tent. The air smelled of ozone and wet earth as the storm raged around us. When the thunder roared away, battered but alive, I surveyed the damage. Mud-caked floors, waterlogged hides, and a generator soaked through. The villagers moved with quiet determination, pressing my shirt sleeves to scrub floors, fanning hides with cloth, and wrapping them in hay to absorb moisture. Arjun approached, drenched. "Miss Flannery, I am sorry, this monsoon, It is harsh, his voice trembled. We will do whatever it takes to get the workshop running. I swallowed hard. We have to. These artisans traveled miles to be here. We promised them advanced techniques and market access. He nodded. We will adapt. For the next 12 hours, we worked in torrential rain. Clinking tools, sloshing boots, and the hiss of electric fans filled the pavilion as artisans and visiting team members labored to salvage hides. By midnight, the generator was repaired and the last hide was hung to dry. I collapsed onto a wooden crate, shouldering fatigue that felt like bone-deep exhaustion. Clara sat beside me, wiping mud from her brow. We did it, she whispered. All we need is a few hours of sun. I nodded, staring at the half-drenched pads of paper on my lap. This is our first real test. Sustainability, indeed. Morning's first light revealed a battered but determined village. The rain had ceased, leaving behind clear blue skies and a steamy haze. Hides hung in rows, drying in the sun, and villagers swept the courtyard of debris. I rose and sounded a brass gong positioned at the pavilion's entrance. The artisans assembled, faces streaked with sweat and soil. I raised my voice to carry across the courtyard. Today we begin the workshop. Quote, a cheer rose, and we dove into the day's sessions, advanced embossing techniques using solar-powered presses, two-color foil application, and a demonstration of our mobile AI kiosk via a battery-powered tablet. The artisans watched, practiced, and then taught me traditional tie stitching patterns unique to their region, delicate motifs of peacocks and lotus flowers. By midday, it felt as though the monsoon storm had been a trial by fire, one that bound us together in purpose. I tasted chai offered by the village elder, his lined face creasing in pride as he watched his people engage with new tools. Clara whispered, "This is why we came." But the triumph was brief. As we broke for lunch, Arjun approached, his face grim. "I have news." My stomach tightened. "What is it?" He took a breath. The shipment of hides, destined for the Eurolux Nightfall series, has been hijacked in transit. Armed men intercepted the truck at a toll plaza south of Jaipur. The containers are gone. A deafening silence followed. The next Eurolux batch, 10,000 journals, scheduled for release 2 weeks from now, depended on high-grade ebony hides from our Rajasthan supplier. Without them, the contract would be in jeopardy. My vision narrowed. Clara's eyes met mine, shock and resolve mirrored in her gaze. Arjun continued. I have alerted local authorities, but this was a professional operation. They knew exactly what they sought. I clenched my fists, heart pounding. Then we find another solution. But as the sun glared overhead and artisans gathered around, I understood the scale of this crisis. A betrayal of trust, a blow to our reputation, and the looming specter of letting down clients and artisans who had placed their faith in us. I inhaled, drawing strength from the villagers' expectant faces. We will recover, I declared, voice steady. We will not fail. But in my chest, a cold question took root. Who orchestrated this hijacking, and why? The answer would surface soon, and when it did, it would test every ounce of our resilience, and the very foundations of the Flannery and Company Artisan Trust. The morning after the hijacking dawned with an eerie stillness. The sun's rays penetrated the pavilion's tent canvas in thin shafts, illuminating the soaked hides hanging like battle flags draped over lines. I stood among the artisans, faces weary, eyes bloodshot from the previous night's labor, clutching a steaming cup of chai that did little for the chill in my bones. Listen up, I announced, my voice firmer than I felt. The courtyard fell silent as every eye turned toward me. Yes, our hides were stolen. Yes, this threatens our Eurolux Nightfall contract, but we will not crumble. The artisans exchanged glances. Some nodded, others looked uncertain. I took a breath. I've already contacted Owen. He's arranging an airlift of emergency hides from the Hove studio, and we're chartering a cargo helicopter to bypass these roads. Meanwhile, we will source local hides, less refined perhaps, but workable. We adapt and move forward. Marisol stepped forward, radiant with resolve. I've secured temporary textile covers for the worst hides. We can test small batches with Eurolux prototypes. She pointed toward a side tent where crates still held supplemental materials. This gives us breathing room. One of the village elders, a wiry man named Ram Singh, cleared his throat. Miss Flannery, in our region there is an ancient hide-drying method using potash and sunlight. My family practiced it for generations. We can salvage even the damp hides. A flicker of hope warmed my chest. Teach me, I replied, crouching beside him. He guided my hands as we applied powdered charred wood and gently pressed hides onto sun-baked stones. A circle of artisans gathered, intrigued by the harmonious blend of tradition and urgency. By midday, the helicopter thundered overhead, the cargo bay heavy with crates from Hove's safety stock of mahogany, ebony, and midnight blue hides. Clara coordinated the unloading, directing artisans to sort premium batches for Eurolux prototypes and incremental supplies for our trust workshop. The rhythmic beat of rotor blades underscored our united effort. I escorted the first prototype to the export pavilion where Eurolux's representative, Monsieur Dupont, awaited. His tailored suit was immaculate, his expression critical. I presented a Nightfall journal bound in ravenwood ebony leather, foil embossed with a delicate southern hemisphere constellation. Field-tested, treated with potash, and refined with traditional sun-drying, the leather gleamed under the pavilion's lights. Dupont's gaze traced the foil pattern. A moment of silence. Then he tapped the journal's cover with one gloved finger. Remarkable. The texture is surprisingly refined. The treatment preserved the grain impeccably. I exhaled, relief cascading through me. We honor both tradition and innovation, preserving heritage even when technology falters. He inclined his head, a rare smile tugging at his lips. Proceed with this batch. Next we need to discuss the exclusive launch. As I returned to the pavilion, a wave of pride pulsed through the crowd of artisans. They applauded softly, some blinking back tears of gratitude. Back in the courtyard, I gathered the team. We did it. We honored this village's methods, and we safeguarded our contract. Now let's finish the workshop before our window closes. For the next 2 days, the workshop resumed in earnest. We integrated an afternoon session on potash treatment, added solar-powered airflow systems, and held nightly debriefs under the tent's warm glow. I joined artisans at their tool benches, stitching journals by hand, testing foil depths, and sharing stories of challenges overcome. On the workshop's final evening, the village gathered for a closing ceremony beneath a canopy strung with lanterns. Arjun addressed the group, translating my words from English into Hindi. Today, we stand united, artisan and entrepreneur, transforming adversity into achievement. The Flannery & Company Artisan Trust is your commitment, just as you are ours. I presented each artisan with a brass badge inscribed with the trust emblem, fastening them to proud chest pockets. Ram Singh stepped forward and placed a hand on my shoulder. We are honored to walk this path with you. Tears pricked my eyes, and I am honored to learn from you. As the ceremony lights twinkled over the courtyard, I felt the weight of every decision, both heavy with responsibility and buoyant with possibility. The Eurolux order was secure, thanks to helicopter crates and ancestral knowledge merged into a singular solution. The Trust Workshop had not only imparted new skills, but also fortified bonds of mutual respect. Yet beneath the triumph lurked a question unanswered. The hijacking was too precise to be random. Someone powerful had targeted our hides, likely a rival supplier threatened by our ascendancy. The incident had tested our mettle, but the source of the threat remained in the shadows. Standing under the lantern-lit sky, I made a vow. I would uncover the orchestrator behind the hijacking. And when I did, they would learn that underestimating me and my team was a grave mistake. Because forging a brand was not just about leather and foil. It was about forging unbreakable alliances, discovering hidden strengths, and confronting adversaries head-on. And as the lanterns flickered above and the monsoon clouds scattered, I realized that our greatest challenges and greatest triumphs still lay ahead. The air in the Hove studio felt electric as I watched the shipment confirmation pop up on my phone. Eurolux Nightfall Series, Batch 2, en route, with enhanced security protocols in place. It had been 3 days since our daring rescue in Rajasthan, and now, back in Brighton, I faced the next pivotal moment, the unveiling of the Artisan Trust's first expanded batch and the launch of a new line called Aurora, inspired by the Northern Lights. Clara and I had designed every detail: journals bound in iridescent leather, AI-curated embossing patterns that mimicked the swirling lights, and an immersive AR experience that would transport clients to the polar skies. But beneath the thrill, a whisper of unease lingered. The hijacking had targeted our hides with laser precision, someone powerful, someone with ties to our rivals. And now, as we prepared to scale our philanthropic endeavor and expand product lines, I couldn't shake the feeling that the threat had not passed. It had only grown more insidious. Clara found me at the fabrication benches, my hands busy stitching the first Aurora prototype. "How does it look?" she asked, leaning over to examine the leather's subtle luminescence. I held up the journal under the overhead lights. The leather shifted hues from teal to violet, the foil emboss capturing constellations in dazzling patterns. "It's perfect, but we need to ensure the production run maintains this quality. No shortcuts, no compromises." She nodded. "I've scheduled twice daily QC sweeps and will personally inspect every unit in the first batch." Our commitment to quality was absolute. It was the bedrock on which our reputation rested, but quality alone would not shield us from sabotage. The next morning, I boarded the early flight to Edinburgh, where the university's incubator program had invited me to deliver a keynote on entrepreneurship with impact. The event promised exposure to academics, investors, and social entrepreneurs. Today's focus: the dual mission of Flannery & Company, luxury craftsmanship and sustainable empowerment. On the flight, I drafted my talk, weaving in tales from Brighton and Rajasthan, the bindery flood, the hijacking, the uprising of local artisans, each chapter a testament to resilience and innovation. When I landed, the crisp Scottish air greeted me, and a hired car whisked me to Old College, where marble columns and lofty archways set the stage for a lecture that felt more like a confessional. The audience filled the hall, students in hoodies, professors in tweeds, and investors in corporate jackets. I stepped onto the podium and began. "Good afternoon. When I started crafting leather journals in my Brighton apartment, I never imagined I would stand here today with a global platform, a philanthropic trust, and a vision to transform communities across continents. My journey has been defined by challenges, some of my own making, some thrust upon me. But through it all, I learned that adversity could be the catalyst for innovation, and that purpose could turn a side hustle into a movement." I recounted the flood crisis, the frantic call to Dover, the all-night production sprints, and the moment when Ms. Davenport declared our journals beyond expectations. Then, the hijacking, the dawn raid in Rajasthan, the community's rally to salvage hides with ancient techniques, and the helicopter's thunder that delivered rescue hides in time. The room was silent, the story resonating with every listener who ever faced overwhelming odds. "And now," I continued, "we stand at the intersection of art and enterprise. The Flannery & Company Artisan Trust has enrolled its first 20 apprentices in Rajasthan. Tomorrow, we will launch Aurora, a journal line that captures the brilliance of the Northern Lights, powered by AI and handcrafted by artisans whose livelihoods now have new hope." A murmur of excitement rippled through the hall as I unveiled the prototype, holding the shimmering cover aloft. "But with growth comes responsibility," I admonished. "We must guard against the forces that seek to undermine progress." The hijacking was not random, it was orchestrated. Yet, in confronting it, we locked arms with artisans, leveraged tradition, and emerged stronger. This is the power of purpose-driven entrepreneurship. As the applause thundered, I felt the magnitude of my words and the weight of what lay ahead. Back in Brighton that evening, I found an email flagged high priority, a briefing from the private investigation team I'd retained in London to trace the hijacking syndicate. Their report was chilling, a shadow network of supply chain saboteurs, financed by a consortium of mass-market manufacturers threatened by our premium pricing. They'd discovered that a key informant, once a disgruntled former assistant, had leaked our Hove inventory schedules to the syndicate. The ringleader, known only by the codename Silverthorn, had orchestrated the hijack to derail our momentum. My stomach plummeted. "Clara," I whispered, tapping her shoulder as she poured tea, "we've been compromised from within." Her eyes were steely. "Then we root out Silverthorn. We secure our systems, vet our staff, and ensure every shipment has a secure chain of custody." I nodded, resolve hardening. Engage the legal team. Notify the authorities. But also, we hit back, strategically and decisively. We'll expose them. The following morning, Clara and I convened a crisis council in the studio. Marisol, head of security, the PI team's lead, and 2 trusted artisans. We laid out the intelligence, the assistant's betrayal, the syndicate's network, and the planned escalation timed with Aurora's launch. Our response: enhanced background checks, real-time GPS tracking on shipments, encrypted communications, and a media strategy to expose Silverthorn as the culprit, framing it as an attack on artisan livelihoods. Simultaneously, we prepared for the Aurora Line's debut at the London Design Fair in 3 days. The logistical complexity was staggering. Units needed shipped to London under armed escort, the AR and AI kiosks transported and installed, and a press stunt engineered to reveal the sabotage story and highlight our resilience. At the London Design Fair's glittering Riverside Pavilion, press badges and flashing cameras greeted us. Banks of lights illuminated the Aurora display, a constellation of journals suspended in midair within a glass cube, their iridescent covers glowing like ethereal ribbons. The crowd buzzed as we prepared the unveiling. Clara tapped a button, and the cube's glass walls became transparent, revealing a hidden compartment containing a sealed dossier labeled Silverthorn Exposé. I approached the lectern, heart pounding. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, voice echoing across the hall. "What you see before you is not just a display of luxury journals. It is a testament to the indomitable spirit of artisans and entrepreneurs. But this journey has not been without its dark moments." I clicked the dossier release, and press executives descended upon the display, snapping photos as the folder's contents. Evidence of the hijacking plot, messages between the assistant and the syndicate, and a statement from Flannery and Company were broadcast on surrounding screens. Shockwaves rippled through the crowd as the story broke, a cautionary tale of betrayal, innovation, and the triumph of integrity. Then, from within the crowd, a single voice shouted, "To Isla!" A roar of approval followed as journalists lined up for interviews, influencers live-streamed the moment, and buyers penned purchase orders on the spot. I returned to Clara's side, tears of relief and pride in my eyes. "We did it. Again." She squeezed my hand. "This is our renaissance." As the fair wound down, I reflected on the journey that had brought me from the cramped Brighton apartment to standing center stage in London. Each challenge, flood, family confrontation, hijacking, had tested my resolve and sharpened my vision. And each triumph had expanded not just my business, but the lives of countless artisans and the communities we touched. Back in Brighton that night, Father's voice came through a video call. "Your speeches, your exposé, it set the industry on fire, Isla. We're all behind you." Mother added softly, "You've turned mockery into momentum, adversity into opportunity. We proud of our daughter." Owen chimed in with a grin visible on the screen. "Silverthorn doesn't stand a chance." As I hung up, Clara and I shared a satisfied smile. The path ahead remained fraught with challenges and opportunities. But now, fortified by every victory and every trial, I felt prepared to lead Flannery and Company and the Artisan Trust into uncharted territories. Tomorrow, I would draft the next chapter, because this story of resilience, innovation, and crafting a legacy was far from over. I took a long, steadying breath as I stepped through the revolving doors of headquarters in central London. The morning sun glinted off the sleek facade of what once had been an old tobacco warehouse, now transformed into the gleaming global headquarters of our fledgling digital gifting platform. Clara and I exchanged a knowing glance. Today marked the beginning of our next ascent, but also the closing chapter of our confrontation with Silverthorn. Behind me, the quiet hum of the security scanners reminded me how far we'd come, from leather journals in a cramped Brighton flat to an enterprise commanding armed escorts and private investigations. Yet every achievement bore the scars of adversity. The hijacking in Rajasthan, the betrayal of a trusted assistant, and the shadow network that sought to dismantle our progress had all led to this moment. Boarding the elevator to the 6th floor, the nerve center of Flannery & Co.'s digital division. Clara's cell pinged, an urgent message from our legal counsel. I answered it as we walked through the glass hallways. Status on the Silverthorne injunction? I asked the lawyer's silent silhouette. Granted. Her voice crackled through the speaker. We have a frozen account order, and the assistant in custody is naming higher-ups in the syndicate. Your embargo on the Nightfall series remains intact. A flush of relief warmed me. Thank you. Let's proceed with the press release at 11 a.m. Clara slipped the phone into her bag as we reached the elevator. Together we pressed the button, steeling ourselves. Entering the open plan office, we were met by our operations team, engineers, artisans turned supply chain specialists, and communications staff busy at their standing desks. The screens lining the walls tracked shipments, live AI personalization sessions, and artisan trust dashboards across multiple continents. It was a portrait of organized chaos, and I thrived in such environments. I strode to the front, where a small stage had been set, a lectern bearing the Flannery & Company insignia and a single silver microphone. Around it, journalists, social media correspondents, and an entourage of VIP clients gathered. At precisely 11 a.m., I tapped the microphone. The room hushed. Good morning, I began, voice clear. Today, we reveal not only the Aurora series for our Artisan Trust, but also our unyielding commitment to integrity. We have named and shamed the syndicate known as Silverthorne, whose attempts to sabotage our livelihoods have been thwarted by justice and collective resolve. A wave of camera flashes filled the room as I continued. The ringleader, a former insider who betrayed our trust, is now in custody, and further investigations are underway. Flannery & Company will not tolerate such attacks on artisan communities or on our brand. We will hold accountable anyone who seeks to undermine the power of craft and innovation. Reporters scribbled notes as I unveiled a live feed map showing frozen assets and iced shipping lanes. Now, I said, shifting tone, let us focus on creation. The Aurora series celebrates not only natural wonder, but the spirit of global artisans. Each journal is hand-bound by artisans in Rajasthan and Hove, with AI-personalized embossing delivered instantly through our digital platform. Today, I invite you to experience Aurora for yourselves. Clara tapped a button, and overhead screens lit up, guiding guests to kiosks where they could select leather hues, embossing patterns, and custom quotes. The room transformed into a vibrant gallery, where whispers of wonder accompanied every handcrafted sample. After the press event, Clara and I slipped into the boardroom to finalize our next venture, the acquisition of a small design studio in Kyoto, Japan, renowned for its traditional woodworking techniques. The goal: to expand our artisan trust to timber-bound journals and wooden desk accessories, preserving another facet of craftsmanship. Integration will be complex, Clara noted, pointing to a roadmap of milestones, due diligence, cultural exchange programs, and cross-training for artisans. I agreed. But the synergy is undeniable. Leather, AI, wood. Combining disciplines will redefine luxury gifting. Just then, Owen joined us, a warm smile on his face. Behind him, an elegantly rolled parchment bore the crest of a prestigious Japanese press house. The Kyoto studio asked me to personally deliver their letter of intent, he announced. They respect our brand's ethos, innovation grounded in tradition. They're eager to see your solar-powered emboss kits in action. I felt a thrill. Then let's plan a delegation visit. And invite the Kyoto master artisans to Hove, create an exchange residency. Owen nodded. Made the arrangements. Flight leaves tomorrow evening. That evening, Clara and I stood on a high-rise balcony overlooking the Thames, the city's lights flickering like constellations. We sipped green tea, minds buzzing with next steps. I never thought our story would span continents and mediums, Clara mused. I gazed at the shimmering water. It's been a journey of countless adversities and victories. From one journal in Brighton to global empowerment. But the real triumph is how we've held true to our values: quality, community, and courage. Clara smiled with tears shining in her eyes. And to think, it all started with a mocking remark from a brother. I laughed softly. He mocked my side hustle, so I became his lead supplier. But now, together, we've built an empire, on equal footing. She raised her cup in a toast. To rewriting our narratives. I mirrored her gesture. And to the next chapter, where craft meets purpose, and every challenge becomes an opportunity. The city stretched before us, a tapestry of stories waiting to be told. And I knew, with Clara and Owen by my side, we would continue to craft chapters of resilience, innovation, and togetherness that resonated across the world. The dawn broke with a gentle mist rising off the Kamo River as Clara and I stepped onto the polished wooden platform of the Kyoto International Design Fair. The air was cool and fragrant with cedar and autumn leaves, a stark contrast to the urban bustle of Brighton and London. Our team had arrived the night before, jet-lagged but exhilarated, eager to unveil the latest fusion of traditions we had crafted. The Reverie Fusion, a hybrid journal series combining fine Kyoto craftsmanship in hinoki wood covers with flannery leather spines and AI-personalized embossing. Our Kyoto partners, led by the venerable Master Tsuyoshi Watanabe, guided us through the final installation. Rows of elegant journals sat displayed on low tables of polished paulownia wood, their covers carved with delicate relief patterns inspired by the temple carvings of Kiyomizu-dera. Embedded LEDs beneath the display cases glowed softly, illuminating each journal's constellation-inspired film from within the paulownia apertures. Clara stood beside Master Watanabe, exchanging bowing greetings in Japanese, as we put the finishing touches on the exhibition. The fair hall teemed with industry insiders, design connoisseurs, and press, catered by gleaming booths from across the globe. We had secured a prime spot at the center of Hall B, flanked by the latest digital installations from Scandinavian furniture designers and avant-garde French perfumers. But our Reverie Fusion display stood apart, ancient wood and supple leather dancing with holographic AI animations above each journal. Clara tapped my shoulder. "They're coming. The VIP guests are arriving." Her voice trembled with excitement. I smiled through my nerves. This was the culmination of months of collaboration, travel, and problem-solving that had begun with a leather journal mocked by my brother. Now it would reach the world stage of high design. Moments later, the velvet rope shimmered as a procession of Kyoto's cultural ministers, international buyers, and renowned design journalists glided toward our booth. Master Watanabe stepped forward, hands folded respectfully. "Dear guests," he began in fluent English, his voice resonant with calm authority. "We welcome you to the convergence of two worlds, the ancient craftsmanship of Japanese joinery and the modern artistry of digital personalization." He gestured to our journals. "Each volume you see here is bound by hand in these woods, and each bears an imprint crafted by the signature of its future owner, encoded, interpreted, and embossed by Flannery & Co.'s AI platform. It is our homage to the past and our embrace of the future." A hush fell over the crowd. Buyers bent to inspect each prototype, flipping through the cream-colored washi paper, running their fingers over the hickory and myrtle spines, admiring the foil-embossed cosmic patterns shimmering across the leather sections. A Japanese design critic pressed his palm against the polished hinoki cover. "Exquisite. The grain and the foil meld seamlessly. Tell me about the AI aspect." Clara stepped forward, speaking in halting Japanese supported by our interpreter. "Our AI platform analyzes handwriting samples and personal narratives to generate a unique embossing template, one that we pilot-tested globally in New York, Singapore, and Berlin. Here, we integrate Master Watanabe's wood joinery motifs as dynamic vector overlays, ensuring that each journal is a bespoke work of art." She tapped the interactive screen behind us where a user's handwritten phrase, "Embrace impermanence," rearranged into a delicate pattern echoing temple latticework. The critic's eyes gleamed, a true symbiosis of technology and tradition. As the crowd buzzed, cameras flashing and notebooks scribbling, I felt a surge of pride. but also a low flutter of unease. The hijacking of our hides in Rajasthan and the Silverthorn conspiracy in London had reminded me that success invited envy and sabotage. I scanned our booth, noting the perimeter monitors and discreet security staff. Even here, far from Brighton, threats could materialize. But today the focus was celebration. The VIP tour concluded with a live demonstration. Guests wrote a short memory of Kyoto on tablets, then watched as the AI generated an embossing design, imported into our CNC foil press and applied to the leather spine. In under minutes, each participant held a personalized journal, a tangible souvenir of the collaboration. That evening, we attended the fair's gala reception at a nearby ryokan, built in the traditional Machiya style. Lanterns glowed across tatami mats, and lacquered trays brimmed with sashimi, tempura, and delicate sweets. I sat beside Owen, who had joined us for the Kyoto leg, his presence a testament to how far we'd come from his initial skepticism. He leaned across the tray. "You've outdone yourself," he whispered. "I've never seen anything like the Reverie fusion." I smiled, letting the warmth of our partnership wash over me. "It wouldn't exist without you, your belief, your support, your willingness to invest." He reached across and squeezed my hand. "To sister and brother, redefining legacy." I laughed softly. "To rewriting family history." The next morning, our Kyoto partners had arranged a private sightseeing tour. Master Watanabe wanted Clara and me to experience the woodlands where the hinoki was sourced, and to meet the artisans in their mountain workshop. We boarded a sleek Japanese train bound for the rural prefecture, maples blushing with autumn color, and temple spires peeking through mist. At the hinoki forest, we donned wooden sandals and followed flaming anthropic paths lined with moss-covered stones. Master Watanabe's apprentice, Hiroshi, demonstrated how the logs were milled by hand into slender panels. He handed me a freshly cut plank, its fragrance crisp and invigorating. "Feel the energy of the tree. Each ring tells a story." I pressed a palm to the grain, inhaled deeply, and thought of the artisans in Rajasthan teaching me sun-drying techniques. Across continents and cultures, the artisan's spirit thrived through shared respect for raw materials and skilled hands. But as Hiroshi led us back to the train station, my phone buzzed with an encrypted message from our head of security. Several crates bound for the Kyoto residence demo site in London had been flagged as missing in the Shinjuku yard audit. Someone had intercepted them under the cover of darkness. My chest tightened. The sabotage network had followed us across oceans. I took a breath, recalling the mantra that had guided us through floods, betrayal, and corporate warfare. Adapt, innovate, persevere. I stepped aside with Clara, voice low. Arrange an immediate audit of all shipments, retrace every route, notify the local authorities. We cannot let Silverthorn, or any rival, undermine this moment. Clara's eyes were fierce with determination. "I'll coordinate from the London office. We'll reroute replacement prototypes by air freight." I nodded, steel forming in my spine. "And I'll confront this head-on. I want every contact in Shinjuku activated. We find these crates, or we expose the network publicly at tomorrow's closing ceremony." As the train pulled away, leaving the cedar forest behind, I gazed out at the autumn landscape, feeling the weight of the final trial before us. The penultimate chapter had arrived, and I stood at the threshold of a showdown that would determine not only the fate of Reverie Fusion, but the security of every artisan, every collaborator, and the legacy of Flannery and Company itself. Tomorrow's closing ceremony would be more than a celebration, it would be a reckoning. The first light of dawn broke gently over Kyoto's ancient rooftops, as Clara and I stood by the sliding shoji doors, gathering our strength for the day's grand finale. The Reverie Fusion closing ceremony was only hours away, and the weight of the past 19 chapters pressed on me like a phantom reminder of every setback we had survived and every victory we had earned. From Brighton's cramped flat to the global stage of digital gifting platforms, aviation foldings in high-tech AR showrooms, daring rescues in monsoon-flooded Rajasthan, and clandestine freight yard raids in Shinjuku, this journey had tested me beyond measure. And now, it was time to close the circle. I inhaled the cool morning air, savoring the faint scent of hinoki wood and cedar that lingered in our Kyoto residence. Beside me, Clara, ever my steadfast partner, checked the final event schedule on her tablet. "All stations green," she whispered, offering me a reassuring smile that felt like a lifeline in the swirling currents of anticipation. Our Kyoto partners, Master Watanabe, Hiroshi, and the team of wood artisans, joined us on the tatami mats for a quick ceremonial bow, honoring the fusion of our crafts. Then, with the weight of expectation heavy in the room, we pressed on. The venue, the Grand Hall of Kyoto International Exhibition Center, its timeless wooden beams echoing centuries of art and innovation. Lanterns strung from eaves glowed like constellations, and the Reverie Fusion display, Paulownia wood and leather journals, stood at the center of a circular dais. The audience, a diverse tapestry of industry moguls, cultural dignitaries, members of the Artisan Trust, and journalists, filled the hall with a charged hush. As the master of ceremonies introduced us, I felt every heartbeat resonating in my chest. I stepped forward, my tailored kimono jacket brushing the polished wood floor. "Distinguished guests, dear friends," my voice echoed with calm determination. "We gather here to celebrate the culmination of a dream born of passion, tested by adversity, and realized through collaboration. The Reverie Fusion series represents more than a mere product line. It is a testament to the power of tradition meeting technology, of local artisans and global visionaries uniting to create something truly transcendent." Behind me, screens lit up with a montage. Scenes of Hove's bindery floods, Dover handcrafts presses, Brighton boardroom negotiations, monsoon rescue efforts, AR demos in Mayfair, keynote addresses in Edinburgh, and global pilot launches. Each clip threaded a narrative of resilience and innovation. The crowd watched in rapt silence, absorbing the arc of our journey. Yet, as with any ambitious endeavor, we faced forces that sought to derail us. The hijacking of our Rajasthan hides, orchestrated by the syndicate known as Silverthorn, was a ruthless attempt to undermine our trust. But today, I stand before you to declare that adversity can be transformed into opportunity when met with courage, unity, and unwavering commitment to integrity. At my signal, Clara tapped a tablet that triggered the ceremony's second act. Drones hovered above the dais, releasing a gentle shower of sakura petals, as the screens shifted to live footage of the Shinjuku freight yard operation. Plainclothes officers seizing the hijacked crates, securing the precious Reverie Fusion prototypes. Audio from the investigation team's briefing crackled through hidden speakers, confirming the arrest warrants, the frozen accounts, and the imminent prosecution of the syndicate. Gasps of awe and relief rippled through the audience. I watched as faces that once brimmed with curiosity now glowed with respect. "Today," I continued, voice firm, "we reclaim not only our products, but our collective honor. The artistry of every craftsman, from Rajasthan's potash and sun-dried hides to Kyoto's centuries-old cabinetry, remains untarnished. Silverthorn's conspiracy has been exposed, and justice will prevail." Applause thundered, echoing off cedar columns. The final act began, an interactive Reverie Fusion experience. Guests approached AR-infused kiosks, sliding their own handwriting onto holographic displays, then watching unique embossing patterns dance across jade-green leather spines mounted in handcrafted Paulownia frames. Each bespoke creation emerged from a union of AI algorithms, artisan skill, and cross-cultural storytelling. Master Watanabe himself guided dignitaries through the wood spine joinery, his calm presence a living link to generations of craftsmen. Clara seamlessly integrated AI narrative modules, enabling participants to see their personal stories encoded in foil, wood grain, and washi paper within moments. Journalists clustered, capturing every angle, smartphone cameras, broadcast crews, and social media influencers live streaming to hungry audiences around the globe. As the ceremony wound down and guests sipped sake beneath lantern-lit eaves, I slipped away with Clara to a quiet veranda overlooking a koi pond rippling with afterglow. The night sky, clearer than it had been in days, offered a tapestry of stars, the same constellations that had inspired our Nightfall and Aurora series. Clara leaned in. "We did it," she whispered. "Every challenge, every chapter culminated here." I reached for her hand, the warmth familiar and grounding. We honored every artisan, every stakeholder, and every doubt that drove us forward. But this is not the end. It's a new beginning. She patted my arm. What comes next? I traced constellations on the calm water. More artisan trust centers, West Africa's leather cooperatives, South America's paper makers, Morocco's textile weavers. New product lines, ceramic covers, textile bindings, bamboo styluses, each a celebration of local craft and digital innovation. Clara's eyes shimmered with excitement. And Silverthorn? I let the lantern light cast shadows across my face. Justice will take its course. But our focus remains on building, empowering, and inspiring. The forces that test us are also the ones that show us our strength. Quote, by the pond, I pulled out a slender, leather-bound notebook, the journal I'd carried since the Brighton floods. I opened to a fresh page and began to write. In every valley we traversed, we found the spark of possibility. In every gale we weathered, we discovered the courage to stand firm. Our story, born from a mocking laugh and a side hustle, has become a constellation of resilience, innovation, and unity. And as we chart new horizons, may we always remember that craft, when wedded to purpose, can illuminate even the darkest nights. I closed the journal, pressing my palm to the embossed constellation on its cover, and spoke the final words into the night. A solitary crane called from the moonlit waters, and Clara joined me in that soft symphony, two voices intertwined in triumph, poised to write the next chapters of a legacy that would shine across the world. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.